So, Institute of Higher Reasoning.
So just to tell you a little bit about, this is the agenda for today, so we'll tell you more about our organization. And then we'll get into the arguments, outlining the arguments for God. So my part will be a small piece of the presentation where I'll be outlining the concise proofs of God, which is based on a paper that I've written. Then we'll get into the detailed proofs of God based on Brother Nadim's paper and papers of two other colleagues that had written about the subject. And then we'll get into the most favorite part of the meeting, which is Q&A and discussion, where we look forward to interacting with you and discussing further on this, engaging with you on this very important topic. So a little bit about our organization. The Institute of Higher Reasoning, which is IHR for short, basically we're a think tank that promotes compassion and rational thinking. One of our mandates is to promote public engagement and discussion on God and related meaningful topics. So we want to bring this discussion to the society at large, the Muslim and non-Muslim society at large. We have some very exciting projects on the go, and I hope most of you can play a part in that, get involved with us on that. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to ask us about it. Now, all our works, most of our works, and the full mandate of the IHR can be found at our websites. This particular page, I believe you have a copy of, which everyone should have a copy of. So at your convenience, do check out our websites.
I can use this.
Now, before we get into the arguments on the concise proofs of God, I'd like to pose this question to you all. What does God mean to you? I know I'd be happy to take a comment or two at this moment. Does anyone just want to take a shot? Cheer? No, so if not, it's okay. It's all right. Okay. What God means to me is what is logically and rationally arrived at. And at this point, a good thing to do is to remind each and every one of us, what reason is, what logic is. Now, reason is nothing but an interconnected thought process of logically making sense of actions, things, or ideas. The analogy could be made to fitting pieces of a jigsaw puzzle together. The process of reasoning is based on the law of cause and effect, as this universe is based on cause and effect. So here's an example where one would use reason. So if a man is standing in the middle of the road and the man sees a car fast approaching him, that man would move away from the vicinity of this car. The man reasons that if he does not move away, the car will strike him, which is the cause, and he would be injured or killed, which is the effect. Now, logic is simply a formal and systematic way of reasoning. And I want to stress that reason and logic does not make truth. It simply is a tool to discover what is already true. A logical argument or a rational argument in which all its premises from which its conclusion follow are in fact true is a logically sound argument, and therefore its conclusion holds true. Now, these are two very simple examples of sound logical arguments. So first example is, if it's raining, then my car is getting wet because I parked outside. That's the first premise. Second premise, the fact that it is raining, therefore my car is getting wet. Second example is, this established the truth of all of us are going to die one day. So all men are mortal. Zishan Shabazz is a man, myself. Therefore, Zishan Shabazz is mortal. Okay? Now on to the arguments for God. First premise is something moves the moving thing. So we know that for anything that moves, there's a mover behind it. Something moves whatever moves. The universe is moving. So the universe is moving right down to its molecular level. Therefore, something is moving the universe. Second part of my argument. The mover precedes the moving thing, i.e. the universe. The objectless plane precedes the universe. Therefore, the objectless plane is moving the universe. Now I'm going to elaborate on this. Now, for anything to exist, there has to be a plane, a ground, a realm for it. In terms of the moving universe, which encompasses all objects, it emerges on an objectless plane or ground, because if this realm weren't so, or if it wasn't there, the moving universe would not have anywhere to move. So logic dictates that the very objectless ground, plane, realm precedes the moving universe. And being that the mover of anything moving precedes that moving thing, which is the moving universe, we therefore conclude that the very objectless realm or reference that precedes it is moving the universe. Now note, the objectless plane cannot be divided. So think about this. Do this thought experiment in your head. How can an objectless plane be divided? If it cannot be divided, therefore it is one. The objectless plane is limitless, because no matter how many things exist on this plane, it does not subtract or take anything away from it. The objectless plane does not have a beginning point or end point, and therefore it is eternal. And there is not anything that can be compared to the objectless plane, and therefore it is incomparable. So in summation, it is logically concluded for anything to be, which is the effect, is preceded by its cause, law of cause and effect. We know that the objectless plane logically precedes every single thing. And if the objectless plane, which is itself indivisible, limitless, immovable, eternal, incomparable, precedes existence of all things and any things, then it follows that it is the first cause of all things. And if it is the first cause of all things, then we infer it is a highly intelligent and conscious causal agent, as it has caused intelligible, creative, and conscious things or beings to be. Now, Brother Nadeem will now get into the detailed arguments for God. Now, you don't, as they say, the devils are in the details. So Brother Nadeem will now address the devil.
Okay. Okay, so here is a paper on the devil. So, my colleague and I, his name is Mehran, we wrote a book called From Facts to Values. I have a copy of it. We wrote it in 1995. And we were looking at the various proofs, and I think the brother there, he talked about the cosmological, the ontological, and the teleological proof. And although the teleological and the cosmological proofs, they're good, but they need to be integrated, and there's a lot more information in them that can be further enhanced. So in 1995, I wrote a book, and I had it turned out to be a new proof for the existence of God. I didn't have a name for it, but when I wrote another book, and I had that too, with Muhammad Muslim, Brother Muhammad Muslim, he's in West Africa right now. Then when I looked back at my proof, I thought, yeah, that is actually a whole new proof, and I gave it the name Teleogenical. And then Muhammad Muslim, he wrote the Sesamatic proof. So these were published as well in Scientific God Journal. So these claim to supersede and supplant all other formal proofs and the deficiencies. Today we will also see the link between these two proofs and Brother Zishan's proof. Okay, so I'm going to follow a paper that was published by my colleague Muhammad Muslim in the Scientific God Journal. So basically, people say that God does not exist, and that that's a fashionable claim, that God doesn't exist, and that it cannot be proven logically, and that belief in God is just a matter of the heart. So what Muslim did is, step by step, he showed a definitive proof of God, and I kind of summarized it in the sheets I gave you. But if you just look at it, the sheet, and read it, it's going to be very abstract. So one of my challenges is to make it another place. So let's now proceed to do this. Okay. Now, why is it important to know whether God exists or not, definitively? If God is a phantom, life is meaningless. Now you do what you feel like doing. Do what feels good. There's a collapse of morality. There's relativism. You know, what is good for you is good for you. What's good for me is good for me. There's no absolute. There are no absolute morals. humans tend to make others gods, basically. Irrationality spreads. And if there's no God, there's so much injustice, then is that all? When we die, is that it? These are questions which are very important, and they have to do with this issue of God, whether God is. If there's no God, then there's no policing agent. It's taqwa. But I'm not going to get into Islamic terminology, but that's basically what I'm talking about. So in a nutshell, as Brother Muslim said, he said, in a nutshell, that's from his paper, all the dreams and structures of mankind, including this journal, are nothing but the babbles of miserable dreamers. Now, since this proof is very kind of, in a way, there are two proofs. One is the Sesamatic proof, which is Muhammad Muslim's proof, and there's another one, the Teleogenical. The Sesamatic proof is somehow abstract, and it will be difficult for someone to immediately understand all the concepts. So in order for some people to understand some concepts, I want to give a practical example. Okay, so one practical example is, if, for example, you, where's Zishan? If you pass this to the brother there, pass it to him, and you pass it to him, and you pass it there, and you pass it to the end. Now, there's cause and effect, right? You were able to receive that because he's at a finite distance from you. But what if he was in Pakistan? It would take a long time, and there's so many people, right? What if he's on another planet? It would take a really long time. What if he was an infinite distance away? If he is an infinite distance away, you will never receive this. Similarly, if you wanted to then give it back to him, he would never receive it. So you can call him the stop point. So this is a kind of a concept that I want you to keep in mind, because another example is, you go for a passport application and the guy says, oh, I can't give it to you, you got to go to this other office. So you go to the other office, he says, I can't give it, you have to go to this office. So if you keep going to an infinite number of offices, you'll never get your passport application, right? Like you go to the Pakistani consulate or something. So you can think of other, getting permission. And there's a second, this part has, this proof has two parts to it. I actually brought a magnet. But anyway, you might be wondering, what is a magnet got to do with proof for the existence of God? But I'm trying to build some concepts so you can understand the proof. So let's say if I have a magnet, north and south pole. If I take the magnet with the north pole and I put the one with the south pole and put it here, what's going to happen? It's going to attract, right? It's going to attract immediately. But if I hold this, is it going to attract? It's not. So what is coming in between? It's my will. So keep this idea in mind as well. Okay, so now that we have these concepts, let's start with the proof itself. So, do human beings exist or not? No one can rationally disprove that we exist. It's self-refutatory. But if we exist, something made us. Because if you say we don't exist, you have to have your head examined. We all exist. We know that. So let us. So there are various ways of approaching this proof, but this is one of the variants that Muhammad Muslim used. Let us call whatever made us a cause. So some people say God equals the cause. These are interchangeable. The question is, what do we mean by God? Disputes are only about attributes of cause. So as Muslim said, we are all atheists about the God of those that we do not believe in. So in effect, we are all atheists and we are all believers. It all depends upon which God you're talking about, because there has to be a cause, whatever that is. Now what we're going to do is going to find out that there is, get into that a bit more. Okay, so around us in this universe, we see a lot of change. Change is a reality, it's undeniable. 200 years ago, the billions of people alive now were not here. More may come after we go. Where do they come from? Logic of the philosophers. From eternally changing matter. So they say that these things come from eternally changing matter. It's eternal. So some things precede others. Parents came before children. But if, as the philosophers say, changes in matter have no beginning or first step, how to account for succession? Okay. Now, so if you don't move from one, you cannot get to two. Now, matter is a collection of limited things. So matter is a number of many things, and all of them are in motion. all matter is in motion, because matter does not rest on anything. So everything we see is in motion. Even the particles here are in motion. Everything is in motion. Okay, so so that is one thing to keep in mind. So because matter has always been moving, there's from and to. It's always been moving, right? So the thing is that since we are here and matter has been moving, so how come we are here right now? And if matter has been moving, how come we are here? Because if matter was eternal, we would not be here right now. Just like, for example, if he was seated an infinite distance away, he would not be able to get this document to him. So matter has to come to a stop, an origin point, a stop point. Because if it doesn't come to a stop point, then the cause and effect will keep going, and you will never come to the now. So this is basically what is being said here. So imagine a stop sign. You put a stop sign here, and the philosophers are saying that matter was eternal. So if matter is eternal, and you have cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect, and it never had a beginning, then it would not be able to reach here. So there has to be a stop point at some point. So if something is matter, it has to have a beginning point. This is basically what he's saying here. He's saying this leads to a stop argument. First, convert time to distance. Enables us to see changes and movements in distance. Matter has been changing forever. Equals matter has been moving forever. If the philosophers are correct that changes had no beginning, no one will be able to point in space and say, here is where it started. But we know the past, and we know of the past and now, and that the now has been fleeting into the past. But the now came from somewhere. Let us now place an imaginary stop sign in the now. Send matter back to where it came from the stop sign. Okay? Will matter ever reach the stop sign from where it came from? Logically, it cannot. Going or coming, the distance is the same. But since matter is here, therefore it must have had a beginning, an ultimate beginning point, right? So to just recap this, if you lived an infinite distance away, you would not be able to reach home. You just couldn't. And therefore, if you came from your home and you're an infinite distance away, you'd not be in this hall. So this, like to and from, like when he passed it from, it came to, like from to, right? So you cannot have infinite from to, because then you will not have this now. This is basically what the argument is. There has to be a beginning point. So could matter be the cause of its own change? If matter was the be-all and of everything and always existed, then it must have possessed the properties to create us. Okay, he's getting into the second part of the argument. Now, if the philosophers say that matter always existed and it was just matter, then, in other words, the universe was infinite, then why are the things which have created us now, why were they not created at a time before this time? That's why I use the magnet example, because when all the conditions are present, then the magnet will attract, right? So if this universe has everything in it, then why did something that is created now was not created before this time? Let's call this time t. So why was it not created before, say, t minus 1? Then you can say, why is it not created before t minus 2? Because if the universe could not have created us, did not have those ingredients to create us, then it could never have created us, because there's nothing other than matter, according to them, out of which the universe, these things can be created. But if it had the potentiality to create us, then why is it happening at this time and not the time before? That's why I brought the magnet. You see, the reason is because there's a delay. What is the cause of a delay? It can only be a will. The delay can only happen because of will. Because remember when I had the magnet, the magnet will naturally come, but if I will, then it will not join. It's only when I will it join. So this part of the argument has to do with the delay. What caused the delay? He gets into some technicalities there. I might as well go through it quickly. If X is needed to make the human being, and X did not have the property to make the human being, it could not acquire it from elsewhere, because there is no elsewhere for X to get what it does not have. If X was eternally present in matter, then the changes would have occurred long ago. So here he's saying, to go from this to that, let X be the enabler to move from M from position 1 to position 2, here to there. Therefore, X could not have been in matter but was external to it. But if something is outside, but if something outside of matter exists, there's more to reality than matter. More to reality than matter exists, i.e. God. So God cannot be part of this whatever created us cannot be part of this causal chain of matter. Okay? It is not matter that changes itself, but that which is external to matter, because matter is acted upon by principles. These principles do not inhere in matter, but are imposed on matter from without. Forever does not exist with matter. If changes are not forever, it means that there is not enough matter to produce forever. The motion of matter gives us time. So if matter is exhausted, then there is no time and no forever. Here he's talking about, I think I've covered this. One second. So he's talking about that matter basically has an origin point, a stop point. So the basic what we've shown here is that matter could not have existed forever. The matter had an origin point. Matter had a stop point. And the other point that we have shown is that the cause for the delay has to be a will or an intention. And if there's a will or an intention, it must mean it must be conscious. And if it's conscious, it must be intelligent. Or if it's intelligent, it must be conscious. And if it's conscious, it must be God. So that which delays the development of things and says, I will not create now, but I will create later. Or I will not do this now, I'll do it at this time. It has to be a conscious agent, so it has to be God. Now, so essentially this is what he's saying this. Call this space X. Could this space be a mindless eternal? No, it can't be mindless because it's causing a delay. So is it a mindless eternal where there is no time? Then X can only be everlasting. So this thing which is causing the delay is not subject to time. It's not subject to the motion of matter, because it's the motion of matter that gives us the concept of time. That's what time basically is, this measure of the motion of things using constant motion. So this thing, quotes thing, or this cause, is objectless, formless, imaginative, and not mindless. It is eternal. And as my friend, he said, which I liked his statement, without eternity and imagination, you would not have this universe. So this thing has to have a will as well. It has to have imagination. It's the causer of the delay. In other words, this X is God. But who created God? But God is not part of that time in that sense. And you can see what time is. It's the motion of matter. So God, is basically self-subsistent. So there are two parts to this proof. So one part is that if everything is matter, then why do we get creation at a certain point? For example, they say that the earth arose 4 billion years ago. Why at that point? No, why not at the point before that? Because if the universe had all the properties, which the philosophers say, it had all the matter, then what is stopping the universe from creating the earth 5 billion years ago or 8 billion years ago? Just like the magnet, if all the properties are there, why doesn't it come together? It is because there's a delay. What is the cause of the delay? It's a will. The will is saying, I will not create the universe until 4.5 billion years. And then I will not create this until this and this and this. I will not have Prophet Muhammad arrive on the scene, be born until 570. Right? So it means that there's some kind of consciousness that is outside the causal chain of the matter, cause and effect. The second part of the proof was that if there's this cause and effect, if matter never had a beginning, then we wouldn't be here, because matter moves from two. But if it's an infinite distance away, then it can never reach here. Just like if he could not hand the paper to him if he was an infinite distance away. He'd never get it, right? So these proofs they show that there has to be an origin point for the universe, and that this origin point, that which creates this origin, is not part of matter, but is a plane, the basis plane, objectless space, basis plane. But this space is a conscious space. It's basically what it is. We're saying is it is God. We're going to focus on not how and why we have singularity, but on how we get the universe from the Big Bang. Imagine करें सारा universe छोटे से lump से आए. It's unbelievable, but ये हुआ. What forced the Big Bang? क्यों ये explode क्यों हुआ था? Why? Okay? अभी दो options ही हैं हमारे पास. एक है कि because अगर किसी if nothing acted on the lump, nothing would happen. Imagine करें एक soccer ball ऐसे Big Bang का. किसने कुछ नहीं किया उसके, nothing would happen. We wouldn't have the universe. Something acted on it. What was it? दो options ही हैं. There are only two options. Okay. दो options ही हैं. Okay, but what caused the F1? Okay, I'm jumping ahead. The two options are it's an animate force, okay, which means a conscious force, or it's an inanimate force. Only two options. So let's take the inanimate force. So हम कहते हैं कि F1 ने cause की explosion. F1 ने जाके टक्कर मारी वो Big Bang के lump को या जो कुछ भी है, और उससे ये explode हुआ. Question ये arise होता है कि अगर F1 ने टक्कर मारी इसे explode करने के लिए, so called टक्कर मारी, what moved F1 to do that? और अगर F2 ने किया था F1 को influence, तो F2 को कैसे influence हो? F3 से. F3 कैसे? F4, F5, F6. So ये infinite regress बन जाती है. अगर infinite regress बन जाती है, it can never hit the Big Bang. It can never hit the lump to explode. So you would never have the Big Bang. So there's only one alternative, which is it has to be a conscious force. Because there are only two alternatives. Either conscious force है या unconscious force है. अगर unconscious force है, you get an infinite regress. F1 was caused by F2, was caused by F3, was, and then using the stop argument, you never come to the Big Bang. The Big Bang would never have happened. This is what I'm trying to say here. Using the stop analysis, this would never have gone on forever because the forces cannot come to the singularity from infinity. So there would have been no Big Bang. Forced to conclude, pun intended, that the force is animate and not inanimate, i.e. is an external conscious force that is God. So God caused the Big Bang. The last example of this is oscillating universe. Some atheists try and get away from this Big Bang and say, you know what? The origin of the universe was not the only origin. Before the Big Bang, there was another universe. That other universe collapsed, and before that there was another universe. So there are Big Bangs, Big Crunches. Big Bangs, Big Crunches. So the universe never actually had a beginning. It always happened. It was always there. So in 1934, Tolman proposed the oscillating theory. Infinite series of Big Bangs, Big Crunches. It's not just कि ये एक Big Bang हुआ है और Big Crunch हो जाएगा. इससे पहले कहते हैं और थे. I mean infinite number थे. Same problem इधर हो जाता है. अगर infinite है, series है, इसका मतलब है कि हम इसमें कभी भी नहीं हो सकते. इस Big Bang, Big Crunch. इस जो है realm में नहीं हो सकते. Okay? So इसका मतलब है कि ये infinite series नहीं है. Finite series है. So मैं कह रहा हूँ कि यही है universe, Big Bang, Big Crunch. So ये है oscillating theory. So what we're saying is that there has to be some kind of starting point, a basis plane, right, for everything. And if it cannot be matter, it has to be the other thing. What is the other thing? It has to be that space, that basis plane, because there are only two things left. And what we're saying is that space is a conscious space. Now that space is God. That's what we're saying. But if I get into this teleogenical proof, then maybe after that we can come back to this.
Yeah, we'll get into the.
So this, then you can come back with me. Okay, now this is the so-called I'm calling it the teleogenic proof, and you'll see why. Okay. So the question is, can we infer design from design that God exists? Okay, so what the general argument, the teleological argument, has been that we are intelligent. The universe is designed, therefore there's an intelligence behind it. Okay, is this a valid argument? Let's take an airplane manufacturing example. An airplane requires a manufacturer. But many philosophers say that we have not seen universes created by our eyes and therefore cannot equate them to human design. Something may be like, but something that may be like is not is. Okay? Design means there's a creator. Some thinkers therefore believe that design does not prove a creator. Hume is one of them and has had an influence in leading people to atheism using his argument, plus the appearance of natural selection as a mechanism that is automatic and does not need God, as it is perceived by atheists. That's Hume. What does the teleogenical argument prove? The teleogenic argument seeks to show the fallacious nature of such an argument and shows that design exists in this universe and that can only mean one thing, the existence of an infinite intelligence, God. Okay, so now you have to understand what the trick that has been played in Western civilization and what the so-called Eastern civilization has just bought. This is a trick that was used by the atheists. I call it the fallacy of completion. So this is a quote from the book I wrote. It says, "Those who say that the world must have been made by God, the designer, are focusing on the origin of existence, a mind behind the processes, as the only logical possibility. However, those who say the opposite escape such an absolute conclusion by resorting to processes already the process of an already existent universe." So I'll explain this in further. Okay. So what's happening is that as a Muslim or a lot of Christians, they say, oh, God created the universe. They're usually talking about the origin point, that the universe had an origin. What the atheists do is they use a tactic, and they don't talk about the origin. They talk about the processes. They focus on the processes, the design, the so-called design, what the believers call design. So the atheists evade God by a strategy. They focus on processes and defocus on origination. They shift from the indivisibility of origin and processes to only processes. Then pretend that they have defeated the origin plus processes using only an argument against processes. I dubbed this the fallacy of compilation. Teleogenic, what does it mean? Teleo, purpose, driven, goal-directed, processes, design. Genic, origin. Teleogenic, a seamless, integrated, combined approach. Origin, Big Bang, shown to be a fact from the expanding universe. It's not a theory, it's a fact. It is actually not a theory anymore, but we can get into that, why that is so. Man-made design is approaching design in nature. Intelligence is mimicking the intelligence. In this case, instead of like is not is, like is. So you have an intelligently designed universe where design implies intelligence and the word is inescapable in describing nature, where it is shown that researchers cannot not use it. Or if they avoid using it, they use substitute words like pre-adaptation or mother nature or programming analogies, which imply a program. Okay, so what I'm saying basically here is that what the philosophers, the atheist philosophers were saying was that you cannot really compare, the design of things in the universe to man-made design. If you say that the computer is designed, and is designed by an intelligence, you cannot say that the universe, mountain, or a cheetah is designed, because it is something very different than what humans make. What I'm saying here is that as we develop more our capabilities to design, we're actually approaching the design of nature. For example, we're developing automated systems, that we're developing systems that replicate themselves. So we are actually coming closer to the design of nature. So what I'm saying is it's the opposite, actually. The design of nature is much greater than the design of things in nature is much greater than the design of what human beings do. Therefore, the intelligence is also much greater. And actually, this was stated by Paley, but they forgot about that. He made that point, actually. Okay. So here's the thing. Okay. There is fine-tuning in this universe, right? The way the universe is structured. And this philosopher, he said, it is to be noted that the analogy with the makers of human artifacts is still further weakened if we suppose the material world to have been created by nothing at all. So as I showed that this is a fallacy. The universe, he's saying that when we create things, we use things, but when the universe is created, it was created by, it may have been created by nothing at all. So how can we compare human design to natural design? Okay. Okay. How many minutes, man?
Should be done. 10 minutes.
Okay, I'll just go and finish it in 5 minutes. So the thing is that we want to show that this whole universe is designed, and that it has to be would have had to have been designed by an intelligence that is not like a human intelligence, but it is an intelligence. So we can, like, if you look at Penrose's calculation, he's a physicist. He's saying that the fine-tuning to produce our universe is so unique that it cannot happen by chance. The probability is 1 part in 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 123. That's a fancy way of showing that it's impossible to create this universe by chance. He's talking about the Big Bang origin, and that's the probability. Furthermore, we cannot ignore order, precision, complexity, growth, goal, directness, purpose, and all these things. So it appears that the universe is pursuing an undescribably successful intention. So he posed a challenge, right? He said that the fact that ends are pursued and sometimes attained within the system is not proof that the system as a whole is directed towards any end. So here, let's show how wrong he is. Okay. We'll show that the whole system has been designed, for example, for the creation of human beings, pre-planned. So here's the example. There's an astronomer. His name was Hoyle. I believe, Hoyle. He said that we are made of carbon. In order for carbon to develop, he said that there must have been some processes in the stars, resonance of carbon in the stars. And if we did not have this resonance, then we would not have had carbon. And if we didn't have carbon, then human beings wouldn't have arisen. So this universe is showing foresight, right? And the whole universe seems to be designed so that human beings, entities like human beings could emerge. So that's teleology. That means that teleology means that there's a kind of a final cause. The atheists want to deny that because they don't want to talk about final causes because it implies an intelligence or consciousness and intention, right? You know what I mean? Like, if you want to build a building, you have an intention, then you'll buy your material, right? Because your end goal is to produce a building. That's a teleology. If the end goal is the production of human beings, then it means that the whole universe must be geared towards the production of carbon. So this is what Hoyle showed. He showed that, however, that there has to be certain kind of chemicals in the stars which are very precise to produce carbon. And if these were not present, then we wouldn't have carbon. If we wouldn't have carbon, we wouldn't have life. So the whole universe is geared towards an end goal, which is the production of life, which can only happen if there's an intelligence. It cannot happen by chance. So this is what kind of destroys IHR's argument. Because he's saying that you can't show it for the whole system. This is the whole system. It's the whole universe. Because the universe is filled with stars, right? Which have carbon production. Okay. So basically, I was just talking here about how these proofs can interconnect. So there's a connection between the proofs. So I'll end it, Whereas the Sesamatic proof, which is my friend's proof, is called Sesamatic. He's from West Africa. Sesa means change, so he gave it that name. Sesamatic proof shows incontrovertibly that infinite regress cannot go on forever, and that there must be a stop point and an external starter, created imaginator, based on Sesa, which means motion in Ashanti. Ashanti is a language in West Africa, of the entire system. Likewise, the teleogenic proof shows that there is intelligence ingrained in the process of the universe, and the universe started from the Big Bang, which is a fact, not a theory as the argument.
Presentation, and you just digest it, and there will be a prayer break, and tea is ready. So after the tea, this question answer session, if somebody want to do it now during this interval for tea break.
जो आपका lecture था, whatever was important, can you sum up in few sentences?
Okay. In just a few sentences. Basically, बात ये है कि there has to be something outside the processes. जैसे मेरी उर्दू इतनी अच्छी नहीं है. जो processes हैं universe में, ये जो matter के होते हैं, based on. मैं पहले इनका आंसर कर लूँ.
You can answer in English. Just answer in
Yeah.
English.
Okay. Basically, this universe is based on energy and matter. Actually, it's all energy, really. Different forms of energy, right? So, ये जो atheists है, basically कहते हैं कि बस यही energy है, ये और ये universe हमेशा से है. So basically, हमने ये दिखाया है कि नहीं, ये हो नहीं सकता, because जो भी energy और matter है, उसे शुरू होना पड़ेगा at some point. और because अगर हम कहें कि नहीं शुरू होगा तो हम इधर नहीं हो सकते by logic. मैंने इसलिए example दिया था. और ये और दूसरी बात ये है कि अगर ये यूनिवर्स में कोई स्ट्रक्चर्स अभी बने तो अभी क्यों बने हैं, उससे पहले क्यों नहीं बने? बिकॉज सारी यूनिवर्स गियर्ड है प्रोड्यूस करने के लिए वो स्ट्रक्चर. सो डिले क्यों था? डिले सिर्फ इसलिए हो सकता है कोई इंटेंशन हो कि मैंने अभी नहीं क्रिएट करना, मैं बाद में करना. सो ये दो प्रूफ थे. थर्ड ये था कि हम ये जो कॉस्मोलॉजिकल आर्ग्यूमेंट और टेलीलॉजिकल आर्ग्यूमेंट सेपरेटली नहीं ले सकते, हमें कंबाइन करनी पड़ेगी. ओरिजिन ऑफ द यूनिवर्स प्लस द डिज़ाइन. तो डिज़ाइन में फाइन ट्यूनिंग आ जाती है, जैसे कार्बन है फॉर एग्जांपल, कैसे क्रिएट होता है. ये एंड गोल भी है. तो ये एथियस्ट नहीं चाहते कि कोई एंड गोल हो, बिकॉज अगर एंड गोल ही हो इसका मतलब है कि कोई इंटेंशन है कि कह रहे हो कि मैंने करना है. तो ये इसलिए वो उसकी बात नहीं करते, एंड गोल की कभी बात नहीं करेंगे. इसलिए बहुत डिस्टर्बिंग है टेलीलॉजी. हमने पेपर सबमिट किए हैं जर्नल को जिधर हमने गॉड नहीं मेंशन किया, लेकिन रिजेक्ट हुए बिकॉज हम इम्प्लाई कर रहे हैं कि कोई गोल है, कोई पर्पस है और गोल है. So basically ये arguments I don't expect people to get them immediately, because even for ourselves it took us years and years of struggling writing, you know, and but ये सारे books में हैं, अभी हमारी books में हैं, हमारे articles में.
No. The reason we didn't bring in the Quran because we were first of all we were invited to talk about strictly on the proofs of God without invoking any revelation or claim revelation. So we wanted to show that through reason you can purely show that you can purely demonstrate that there is a prime mover to all of existence. So that was not the topic of today, where we would use the Quran,
because we could use the Quran, but we have studied the Quran in depth, and you know we know I can relate all the verses to the Quran, but I'm not doing.
So we purposely did not invoke any revelation.
Can I just comment on something?
Yeah.
I do not believe you have discovered anything new, or you've discussed or mentioned anything new. Whatever you have said actually has been said before by other people. What you have done is you have basically combined that infinite regression cannot exist. That's one thing. And the second thing, you combine it with the causality, which means cause and effect. And there's just one sentence that answers actually, as a gentleman asked for two sentences, I just answered in one sentence. That's what it is. And that's what everybody has said. And when we bring Quran in, it only helps us to prove that yes, there was a force behind the whole thing. But there are people.
No, I totally agree with you.
There are lots of people. They will not agree with anything that I have just said, or anything that you have said during the last half an hour. Because try and go and talk to this guy in England, what's his name, Richard
Dawkins.
Dawkins. Try and talk to Dawkins. Let's see what he says. Because whatever they say, and they kind of say they are scientists and they are coming from science. In fact, they do not have any proof for whatever they are saying.
I think that I'm posing this as a challenge, that this proves that in 21 it proves, you know, so if someone wants to, like, from a point of view of logic, if you can disprove any of these steps, then you have disproven it. But if you cannot, then you have to accept it as a proof. That's all my friend and I are saying. That's a kind of a summary of the article. The article is 15 pages. Right? So you know, a person cannot come and say, I'm not talking about you, but if I give this to an atheist, for example, I gave it to my daughter, you know, and she's very logical and a very good student, and she went through it, she said, yeah, she agrees that she can't find any flaw in this. If you give it to an atheist, he said, forget it, I don't want to see it. He say, the universe is programmed. Okay, great, it's programmed. Who is the programmer? You cannot get rid of the idea of consciousness, right? So really, you know, usually there's nothing that much new. You know, what you are doing is kind of reorganizing arguments and things like that, basically.
Basically, you have summed up 2 or 3 different people's logics, which have been coming on for the last 500 years.
Yes, it's the not new thing.
But
anyway,
so actually,
it's
I don't understand what we are going to learn from here now.
Sorry, what's that?
What we are going to learn.
No,
The basic thing now, let me finish my question. At this age of stage, that hardly we have to live more than 10, 15 years more, maybe 10 years, 5 years, or 1 year or 1 hour. When we are going to explain to our children now, look, the Tawheed and La ilaha illallah is finished. We have logics now to discuss whether God was there or not there. There are atheists which are why we are discussing that once we have said La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah? Our aim is finished. Discussing these things depart us from our faith, and we are departing from our faith. Now I am diverting my attentions that, oh, what was not there? Magnet is coming. Magnet has been created by God. Magnet has never been created itself. God has said it, and He has said, I have created the earth in 7 days. The fact remains that He has created them. You said that man is being created by carbon. No. He said, man has been created by low earth. So we are challenging Quran or we are following Quran? I have yet to understand.
Okay, we're not challenging the Quran.
Yeah.
We were
So why this discussion?
no, we were invited to speak on.
Oh, that's okay.
We were invited to speak on the proofs of God, not invoking Quran or any revelation. Okay. Now we can talk about the Quran.
Yeah. Do we? No. Again. Do we need a proof of God? Do we need as a Muslim?
Actually, for
My faith.
Okay.
I'm asking about my faith.
So just I'm outlining. Actually, for someone to acknowledge the Quran as revelation, you have to rationally acknowledge the existence of God. Actually, the Quran says that this is revelation for the God conscious. It's actually it's a guidance for the God conscious. So you have to rationally acknowledge the existence of God before you can even accept the Quran as revelation. Now, no, you don't have to know all these details. That's what we call the detailed arguments. What I'm saying is that any person, I'm saying any person can come to the conclusion of there being a creator to the universe. Because everyone has the capability to reason, right? We've simply, and Brother Nadeem did the part on the detailed proofs of God. That was just, I mean, no, you don't have to know the details. I'm not saying you have to know the details.
Brother Nadeem is very good for proving in front of non-Muslims. Okay, go to the non-Muslims and prove them that there is a God. For us, we have no confusion.
Yeah, but you may be talking to your children or others who are for example being challenged right now by all these systems that are saying there's no
we
God.
teach them Quran and we teach them basics.
But when they go to university and all that, they're being
they are
taught
better
about,
Muslims than us.
No, but when they go to, I'm just saying a fact, I have daughters, when they go to university, they're told that there's no God. There's not, that everything happened by evolution.
Maybe.
So what you have to do is, it's good to kind of make them think that, you can actually prove the existence of God, and even in the Quran, you have that. For example, I don't want to get into the Quran, but I can get into the Quran if you want me. When Prophet Ibrahim, he kind of wanted to know certainty, not certainty, how the kingdom of the heavens and the earth was.
Yeah.
He looked at the sun.
Yeah.
When it set, he said, that cannot be my Lord. He looked at the moon. When it set, he said, that cannot be my Lord. When he saw the stars, he said, that cannot be my Lord. But my Lord is only the one who is the originator.
Yes.
Why he said that? Because when he looked at these things, he realized that if they set, then they don't have power over us. So whatever has power over us has to be everlasting, So what he's doing is he's looking at nature and he's proving the existence of God using nature, right? Then there's other verses in the Quran that says, did you create yourself? Or did the universe create itself? Did you create yourself? Or did the universe create itself?
Nothing.
Yeah.
But that was still the time
Quran
he was not given a guideline. The Quran didn't came. So anybody can think where is the God.
Yeah. No, but
But once we have given a guideline, we have been proved and everything. So these discussions are good.
So go ahead.
I have a question. I'm wondering, this is sort of a technical question about when you're talking about a series of events and you're extrapolating backwards.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the fact that there can't be a countable infinite number of events, right? So in discussion of the nature of infinity, so you might be familiar with the mathematician Cantor, where he distinguishes classes of infinity, right? So in the set of discrete numbers, right, we talk about countable infinite objects, and when you're talking about an infinite regress, the class of infinity you're talking about is the class of countable objects. So what I'm saying is that, so implicit in this proof, it seems that you have a fundamental assumption that the nature of events or the nature of time unfolding has to be a series of discrete processes. And this is, I think, an open question within the scientific and philosophical discourse as to whether time should be looked at as a set of discrete events, or as a continuous stream, and then there's questions about the continuity. So what I'm just wondering is, have you had a chance to make this argument robust to the idea of continuity in a spectrum, as in the real numbers, which is a higher order of infinities? And when you're talking about, and just to clarify one thing, when you're talking about the process of passing, the paper from here to here to here, philosophically, there's this very early paradox where, even passing an object from here to here seems to be a paradoxical idea if you actually consider the space as a continuum, right? Because this is a very popular paradox in the sense that you have to go through a series of infinite points in theory, right? In truth, we don't know the structure of the universe at that level.
Okay,
but do you have?
I think that the Western philosophers, a lot of them are getting confused. In nature, there are no paradoxes, but in our human constructs, there.
Exactly.
For example, Epimenides' paradox that you cannot leave the room. Because each time you cover a distance.
Empirically, we know it's true.
Yeah, but it's not true, because that's not how motion is actually occurs. You don't go like here and then you don't go here and then There's a,
no, I understand.
Yeah.
Empirically,
So what's happening is that. For any change to occur, there's always a from and to. That's basically the idea. From to, whatever the details are.
Right.
From to. So, what one Muslim said, and there are a few others, as the brother, I think he pointed out, a few others have this argument too, is that you cannot have an infinite regress, because then causality would not reach us where we are now. There has to be a stop point, and so that is essentially what the argument is saying.
So to that, Dawkins' common retort is who created the creator, right?
Yeah.
And you answer that by saying that there has to be an objectless plane.
Objectless plane so what Dawkins is saying is he's making another stupid mistake. What
He's assuming the creator needs to be created.
No. What he's saying is that if there's a creator, that that those who believe say that there's a creator, then in the end of the causal link, or he's relating to the causal link. I don't do it that way, but anyway, he's saying that. Then he's saying that creator has to be very complex, because he's thinking of neurons. Neurons make up the human minds, and if human beings are thinking, then it's because of the complexity of the neurons that give the mind. Therefore, he's saying that therefore this God must be very complex, so it doesn't solve the problem, because then the question is, where did this God come from? The God's mind must be complex. He's making some mistake, because first of all, they have not solved the problem of consciousness itself. Is consciousness dependent on the brain? Is it materialistic? Is it dualistic? Is it an epiphenomenon? Whatever it is, okay? So he's just assuming a lot of things. And in reality, the interesting thing is, that's a whole other issue. What is consciousness? Which we've dealt with, but I won't get into that. But anyway, this is what Dawkins' problem is.
Right.
He's got a very limited view.
You quoted Penrose. Are you familiar with the Penrose-Hameroff model for
consciousness?
for consciousness and his debates because according to Stephen Hawking, consciousness is and a lot of sort of materialist philosophers, that consciousness in itself is an illusion, and then what we have to do is you have to substantiate the concept of consciousness. And I think when you get into your discussion of consciousness, you have to come at some point. You have to come to a point where you formalize your notion of consciousness.
No, we've done it.
And say that and define how it's an existent object, and that original the original cause has the same property as an isomorphic.
That is the foundation of.
I'd have to look at your paper.